Welcome back to Derry Public Radio. Reporting from the basement of the Derry Civic Center, this is C.M. Alexander with the news. Tonight is the opening night of Revenge Con, America's premier vengeance convention. Have you been wronged? Do you want payback? Then they have just what you need. No lethal options here, as the Revenge Con motto goes. You'd be surprised what you can live through. You are listening to Derry Public Radio. This is Derry Public Radio.
Welcome back to Derry Public Radio, a bi-weekly Stephen King book club podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Joshua Kahn, alongside C.M. Alexander.
Hello, everyone.
And joining us via Zoom, a Pennsylvanian filmmaker who has been making films since the age of 15. He created one of the most emotionally visceral dollar babies we've ever seen with his feature film-length film, Garrish. Please welcome to the show, ajgribble. AJ, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How about you?
Oh, living the dream, man.
Awesome.
So excited to talk to you about Stephen King and Garrish.
Yes.
Now, if you've heard the show, you know that before we can get to the interview proper, CM holds the keys to the rest of the interview with her very well thought out, meticulous questions that you will need to answer correctly in order to pass on. Are you ready for that challenge?
Ooh, let's see.
Josh, I wish you would have set the bar a little lower. No, this one's really hard for me because of how dark this one is. I can't think of anything cute or funny that would be appropriate, like a bit. So I'm not going to do a bit. I'm just going to straight up ask you. I'm just going to shoot from the hip with my questions. Okay, sorry. My first question. What got you into Stephen King? What was your introduction to his work?
I believe it was actually my sister. When I was about 12, 13, she showed me Kubrick's Shining. I've only just heard about King and The Shining and everything else he's done as a kid. Like my sister or my mom were big readers. I've always been curious, Stephen King, what is he? Who is he? And it wasn't until I've seen the movie Twister when at the drive-in they're showing The Shining. And that was my only exposure to him at the time until I've seen The Shining. I'm like, hey, that was a Twister.
That's amazing. Have you seen The Shining? Oh, yeah, that movie from Twister? Oh, yes.
Yeah, I know this isn't what you just said, but I'm in my head, that's how it happened. Your introduction to Stephen King was Twister.
That is definitely a first as far as answers go.
All right, last question that determines whether or not you get to move on through the rest of the interview, which I realize sounds really arrogant. Everybody's kind enough to talk to us, and I'm like, well, you might not last.
Yeah.
What if I do fail?
Then the interview ends. I just
end meeting for all very unceremoniously. Do you have a Stephen King moment from any of his work, something that has stuck with you?
Honestly, I'd probably have to go with It, the book. Yeah, reading that for the first time, I was just blown away. I've seen the miniseries years ago, and I started reading the book before the first part of the movie came out, and I was just reading it, and then it started talking about the turtle and the whole universe and everything. I'm like, What is going on? It wasn't scary, but it was just mind-blowing.
That's a really good point. Usually when you are reading a story, if it is something that is world building in that way, you know that going in. That's kind of why you're reading it. And Stephen King, he sort of surprises you with that in a lot of his books.
Yeah, like I said, I saw the miniseries first, and I thought it was just about the clown and deadlights and that. And then when I started how it's been there since the beginning of time, I'm like, this is like a King Bible.
Yeah. Absolutely. The macroverse is just so insane and carries through so much. I remember the moment reading it when he talks about Maturin. I forget how to pronounce the turtle's name. That him choking to death on a universe. I was like, what the fuck is happening? Such a great moment.
Well, you passed the test because you brought up the multiverse.
Yeah.
So, that's a surefire way to win. So is it or The Shining, are either of those on your list of favorite Stephen King movies?
Definitely those on my list, but right now at the top that really takes the cake is Dr. Sleep.
Yes.
Mainly the movie. I read the book and I like it, but there's just something Flanagan did with that movie that's just like beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about the baseball boy scene more times a week than I care to admit.
It's gut wrenching to think about.
Yeah, it's beautiful filmmaking. It's so visceral and horrifying. I love it.
Are there any that I don't want to say you don't like, because can you not like something Stephen King does? If you're me, the answer is no. Any that just sort of missed the mark for you, or in a way that maybe you would think, oh, I want to see this redone. I want to see another go at it.
Honestly, Maximum Overdrive. Now hear me out. Like,
all right.
It's goofy.
Right.
It's so goofy. But I remember reading like a few years ago that Joe Hill wants to take a crack at it. And I'm like, okay, maybe there's something there that can be redone.
Oh man, I'd sign up for that right away.
Yeah. He said it'd be like about like electric cars and them kind of just like the AI of them.
Everything is Kit from Knight Rider. That is.
Oh my gosh.
So, AJ, you did the Dollar Baby of Garrish that was originally from Cain Rose Up. I'm sure this is an annoying question for you to get asked being so young. As we talked about in the intro, you made your first movie when you were 15. At that young age, what started your love of filmmaking?
It was just making short little films with my friend with my iPod.
Nice.
We would just go outside and we're like, hey, what could we make that's funny or stupid? And we have like so many shorts that we just made for fun. And as I started getting older, I'm like, this would be something really cool to do professionally. So when I was 16, I started going to my Votech school for audiovisual. And for the next few years, I started learning how to actually write something professionally, how to film, how to edit. And it all just started from that.
Do you remember, not necessarily a Stephen King movie or anything, but just a movie or thing you saw that really made it click? Like, I want to do that. Any like directorial influences, things like that?
Honestly, probably the Evil Dead movies.
Yes.
I learned about them in my audio visual class, and we were watching something on Sam Raimi, how he didn't really have a lot of money for the first Evil Dead movie. And then we watched it in class, and I'm watching it, I'm like,
that's amazing.
They didn't do this for like a lot of money. I'm like, I could try doing something like this. And obviously not to that extent, but just making something and putting it out there. I just thought that was the coolest thing.
That's amazing. It's the passion that moves forward so much of film. It just blows my mind when you see things like that and you're like, oh, fuck, I can do that. Let's make that happen. So you adapted the short story Cain Rose Up into Garrish. For anybody who hasn't read it, what is Cain Rose Up? Can you give us the plot of that story?
Cain Rose Up is a short story from his short story collection, Skeleton Crew. And the story is mainly about a college boy named Kurt Garrish. It's like the last week of finals, and he's not feeling the best. He starts walking back to his dorm, has some really horrible thoughts about other students. And then basically at the end, he flips and just starts shooting up the school. And that's about it.
Was this the story that the Dollar Baby, you knew you wanted to make, or were there others? Like, what drew you to this one specifically?
What drew me was I got it in 2018, and that's when every week you just heard of like new shooting in this school, shooting in this school. And it's like, is it going to stop? I remember seeing that story, and it was saying it was from the 70s. I'm like, this is still a topic that resonates today. And I'm like, this would be something interesting to tackle in a short film.
And boy, did you tackle it. One of the things that I really loved about your adaptation, you changed quite a few things, because given the short story, I believe the short story begins with Garrish entering the dorm, and that's where yours ends pretty much. The last 5 minutes of yours is the short story, and you built so much world around this. But the first thing I want to talk about is the major change of changing the gender of our protagonist to a female. Can you talk a little bit about what provoked that change?
Yeah. And first, before I tackle that, I know a lot of book fans or King fans are usually mad if there's changes from like the book. But I felt like this one, it wasn't like necessary, but it was something interesting to tackle, because when I originally wrote it, it was just like a perfect word from word, page to page, like adaptation. And the script was only like 10 pages. So I'm like, that's only a 10-minute short. And I started thinking like, all right, first maybe some backstory, how Kurt, when it was, could turn out like this at the end. And I looked back at all them, like the shootings, it's like, it's all guys. So I'm like, what would maybe want a girl to possibly be provoked and leading up to possibly a shooting? So I figured that was something interesting to put in the film.
I really like something you touched on just a minute ago about fans maybe not appreciating some changes in an adaptation, but I feel like just in this past year since the festival and everything, we've all sort of been learning that when you adapt something and you're true to the spirit of it, but you're also true to the spirit of your vision too, I think that enriches it in a huge way, that fans and audience members, if they're not just your sort of, not to be offensive, but like your popcorn general audience, I think they get that, and I think they appreciate it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like the way you worded that, actually. The fans could appreciate the original story still in it, but also the artistic vision of the filmmaker both combined, and it makes something special. And that's how I feel I tried to do it. Like, the story is there. It's just there's a lot more story that was original that really wasn't in the story. Like Garrish's father being, I think it was a priest. Like, it was in one sentence in the short story, but it was still in this film. It was there.
Taking a character to a breaking point is always so intense to watch, but I think it adds it when you see at the very beginning how, I don't know, color by numbers her life was at the beginning. It seemed like when you showed her, when you introduced this character, it seems like her whole life has been planned out for her, and if she, just does what she's told, that things will be okay. And your film almost starts out with her immediately breaking the rules. And she has, like, having her friend bring her a change of clothes so she doesn't have to dress that way when she meets this group of people. And it all just kind of goes out of control from there. When you were creating this spiral for her to go down, how far back did you take that? Like, I want to start right from Jump Street, her breaking rules and making mistakes. Was it intentional that you wanted the audience to see her start breaking small rules and it escalate that way?
Yeah, in a way, yes. Like, I wanted to show, obviously it wasn't shown too much in the film, but like you said, she was like normal a little bit in the beginning, and then it was her first day of college, and her friend, she's like, oh, you can't dress like that. Like, it's already like evil starting to take over, like right from the beginning, and then scene by scene, there's something that just keeps eating at her or destroying her. And then obviously it all leads up to that final 10 minutes of where the actual short story is, and it's like it all makes sense.
I really like the way you and the actress, I mean everybody involved, kind of played with that concept. In horror movies, it's a very beloved and traditional concept that we have someone who's pure and they are willing to get involved in things that the movie is telling us, is like evil and bad, and then they're almost punished for that behavior. Like the slasher movies, if you have sex, you die. And I don't know if it was your intention or if it was just the natural charisma of your lead, but because of the way she was, it really made you're like, well, no, this is her time. She should be able to experiment and have fun and be safe and just live her life, and she's being punished. And I don't know, I just liked that twist on it. The departure from the traditional, like, okay, you're bad. Now here you go.
Yeah, Natasha, she really brought something else to that character. Like, it was obviously like she helped a lot build that character. When I was going through it with her, she was always like making little changes to the character. It's like, because it was changed from a guy to a female in the script. I'm not a female, so I don't really know the problems of a female because I'm a guy. So she really helped a lot with that character. Like, oh no, this wouldn't really happen. Let me help change it to what could be realistic.
Yes, really genuine.
Yeah, the amount of collaboration that it sounds like the two of you had really showed through in the quality. How far into the project was it until Natasha became attached to the role?
I'd say after I finished the script, it was probably about 2 or 3 weeks. Like, I didn't know her prior, but my dad, he was helping me cast people because I was like, I was still in high school. I was a junior, I think. Like, I didn't even graduate yet. And I was like, I don't want my high school friends in here. Like, it would just look weird. So I was like, I want people who look to be adults or college. And he's like, all right, I'll ask around. I forget how he found Natasha, but we met together. We started going over the script, and she like immediately clicked with it. And like, she was honestly really just perfect for it.
We kept going back to it over and over, that she was just giving it everything she had, every single take, and we absolutely loved her.
Oh, yeah, she's absolutely 100% every take.
This is gonna sound weird.
Strap in, let's go.
Okay, you guys are gonna understand, I think, what I mean. Unfortunately, our listeners probably won't unless they've seen it. She won me over so hard with the rape scene, because this scene, I've seen a lot of rape in movies, and sometimes it's and nudity and stuff, and sometimes it's gratuitous. Sometimes you can understand this serves a purpose, it's intentional, and it enhances what's happening in the scene. And it's really interesting to hear actresses talk about the decision to do scenes like that or even do nude scenes. And you guys somehow made the most tasteful, respectful, heartbreaking rape scene I have ever seen in a film.
Really?
Yes. We were watching and I turned to Josh and I'm like, oh my God, how is this so like visceral and upsetting and seemingly real? Like you feel her anguish and you want to leap through the screen and help her. It's hard to watch, but how can you do that? And also it's so tasteful somehow. Yeah. Like I don't know if that's making sense, but
how do I answer this? Honestly, I don't think I had that intention. It was written in the script and everyone got it, and it's going to sound weird, but like they gave it their all to it. Even rehearsing, we're like, this is very serious. It's like, but we don't want that to like overshadow. So it's like, just like we're making a movie. It's like, let's try to have fun with it.
Yeah.
Obviously, it came out, like you said, like serious and tasteful and heartbreaking. I don't know if we had that intention at first. It was just all meant to be serious for the story.
And I think that shows through that it did not, that scene was not something that was, I guess, I don't know how to phrase it, an umbrella that loomed over the whole thing. It was so impactful. It was so brief. And the reaction of all the characters following that moment was so real. And I think that's what made it wasn't gratuitous in action, and it was honest in the follow through.
Yeah, it wasn't cheap.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, this is it. This is the thing. Some people kind of use that to carry everything else. And this was like, I don't know, it seemed important to you guys and it seemed respectful.
Right. Yeah, like you said, slashers, like they just use it for one scene and it's like they'll die or whatever. And it's like
well, it's something in slasher movies they're like, yeah, and I mean you would not cheer this scene at all. Okay, so sorry, I should have saved that for the end. I really brought the mood to a weird place.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't really know how to answer
it was my fault because I guess I didn't technically ask you a question. I just went on about how cool I thought the rape scene was. So that's on me.
It's going to sound weird, but when my mom watched it, she didn't really say that, but she was like, man, like after like that rape shower scene, she was like, you really had this scene really tasteful without showing much.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm like, thanks, Mom.
You know what? This is just, okay, that settles it. This is just a thing women are going to tap into when they see this.
Yeah.
I guess.
No, and I think it already speaks to your inherent talent as a director in the way it was shot, the way it was edited, the way the whole thing was executed. So huge kudos to you for, even if it wasn't as intentional, you nailed it.
Thank you. And like you said, how it like resonates with women. I remember at the Stephen King Rules Film Festival reading the live chat that was going on. A lot of the women there were saying that there should have been like a trigger warning or like how they relate to it.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, that's a testament to how authentic it can feel, for sure. Now, you made this movie when you were a junior in high school. What was that like? Did like your friends or like peers at school think it was weird that you were making a Stephen King movie?
And way to make me feel retroactively like a loser for not doing anything in high school.
Oh no, my school made me feel like a loser. So like they did not like support it at
Oh
all.
no.
That's wild. That's
Like-
such a huge deal.
Yeah, like my school didn't, but my local papers did. I'll try to find it. I'll send you a picture. But
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I was actually on the front cover of our like local magazine here for a while.
Nice.
That was really cool. But then my school, I get one of my my aunts. She worked at the office at my high school, and she took the paper and she hung it on like the bulletin board in front of the school. A day later, they ripped it down.
Wow.
You know, that sounds
I-
like they were just jelly.
Yeah,
Oh, psh,
for sure.
I think so. My friends and my classmates, they thought it was awesome. They're like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, go you! You made a film, yeah." And then my audio-visual friends, they were kind of jealous too. They were like, like I said, I was a junior, and they were seniors, and they haven't made a film yet.
And you made a Stephen King film.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, honestly, that is so cool because I think there are a lot of people, especially people who love horror, who've had those thoughts and feelings in those moments where like, oh, I wanted you like have those desires. So I'm just curious, what made your desire so something that you could turn into a tangible product at such a young age?
I think it was just the drive of just wanting to do something big.
Mhm.
Like I was 16 and I've only done little short films, and seeing that young filmmakers could do a Stephen King movie, it's like that's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And having the rights for $1, I can do that.
And I can
and that-
afford it.
Yeah, I can. Once I got that letter back saying, "All right, you can do it," it's like, oh, this is real. And just off I went, and the support from my family and my audio visual teacher, Mr. Shaner, they were all amazing with me, and I honestly couldn't have done it without them.
When you applied for the Dollar Baby, did you think there was any chance you were going to get it?
I thought no, because I even put down, I'm like, hey, I'm 16. Is it cool to do? And they're like, yeah. And it's like-
I hope you said that like exactly.
Yeah.
I hope you're not paraphrasing.
I will find the email.
Perfect.
Of course, I saved it.
Yeah, you should have it framed, man. You got a lot of bare space on the wall behind you. Fill it up with.
Yeah.
Blow it up.
No, so when all's said and done, what is it that you wanted an audience to take away from after they watched Garrish?
Well, the first, not shoot up a school.
Yeah.
Good, strong first step.
It's a good
Yeah.
message.
And second, to just be kind. Like, don't be an asshole to people. It it takes nothing to be
Yeah.
kind.
That's one of the things that I really loved about not only the film, but watching your interview when you we watched your interview, obviously, during the Stephen King Rules Dollar Baby Film Festival, about that just being kind and listening, because you watch this movie and you realize that if Garrish had just one person she felt she could have been honest with,
Hmm.
so much of this would have changed.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing. It's like she did have friends, or at least one friend, and he wouldn't even listen.
The other actress you had who was just horrible to her, like
Yeah.
that. I mean, she did a really great job because I wanted to strangle her. I was like, I hate her so much, but which is a compliment. Was any of that intended to be like just literally how she was acting, or was there a part of her performance that was supposed to be for us, the audience, to see how our main character was feeling? You know, when something terrible happens and you feel alone and like you have no one to turn to, people are sometimes horrible, but sometimes too, small things they do that may not be meant to be an injury still injure you. And I was just wondering, were all of her actions really that, or was that being filtered to the audience through Garrish's experiences?
Yeah, I feel like it came through the performance in Garrish. Because like when you're writing the script, you don't really think of at the time like how you want them to act. Like you just have, all right, say the words in front of the camera, and like that's it. Once you finally see them say the words that you wrote on screen, you're like, oh, it's either like this is completely different or this is exactly what I wanted. And like you said, if it was intentional, honestly, not really. It was just the actors just giving it their all, and it was just brilliant.
Can you share any stories from the set in your time of filming this?
The night of the party / rape scene, it was pouring,
Oh,
and like when it was fine for a while. Then we all drove up in one car to the cemetery, and it was pouring for like an hour. And we were debating, like, when can we, like, reschedule this? Like, we don't know if everyone's available again. So we're like, should we leave? Should we wait it out? We waited it out, and then it was fine. But once we set everything up, the ground was just so wet and muddy.
Oh.
So we kind of had to change a few things around so it didn't have to be in that grass. And then when we were on the campus, the first day of shooting, no pun intended, the rifle was a real rifle, but we had a few parts on the inside taken out so it can't be fired. We told security and they were like, oh yeah, you guys are fine. And then comes the second day, they must have switched security guards and they didn't tell them that we were filming.
No.
So once we brought that rifle out, they came to us. They're like, what the hell? What's going on here? Like, we told there's been a rifle on the campus. I'm like, we're filming. We have permission.
Oh, jeez.
And they're like, we've never been told. I'm like, I've got the papers. Like, I've got the emails here. So we had to stop for a while. And they're like, all right, just be careful. Like, we'll keep an eye on you.
Just be careful. Don't shoot anybody from up here.
On one
And then we
hand,
didn't see them the rest of the day.
it's nice they were paying attention and they cared, but like, come on, everybody, do your job.
Yeah, stay in the loop, man.
Exactly.
And where did you shoot the college scenes?
At King's College in Wilkes-Barre.
How were they? How receptive were they to you filming a shooting scene there?
I filmed it at the end of May, so summer was just starting. So the students were all gone and the dorms were all cleared out. I had a radio show there and I talked to a few people. I'm like, hey, how could I possibly film a Stephen King movie here with permission? And I had to send a few emails back and forth to like the higher ups at the college. They were really cool with it. Like, I even sent them a script. I'm like, hey, if you guys are cool with it, here's the script. See if you're okay with it. And they're like, yeah, we'd be happy to film this here.
That's awesome.
I'm like, okay. Okay, sweet.
Let's jump back a second. You had a radio show on the college campus? What is this?
Yeah, for about like 2.5 years, I had a rock metal radio show there when I was still in high school.
That's amazing.
And it was called Deep Cuts.
That's
Jeez.
awesome.
Deep cuts. I like that.
So what has the response been to people who have seen the film? You got the response from the Dollar Baby Film Festival, obviously us right now. But the cast and crew, family, what has that response been like?
Cast and crew, they love it. And my family has been mixed. I won't name who.
Right about the cemetery? Is that about when they became mixed?
Yeah, and the ending.
Sure, yeah. It's a dark ending. It's not a happy ending.
No. But I won't name who in my family, but a lot of them were like, oh, this is great. And then half of them were like, oh, good job.
Sure wish you didn't kill those people at the end. Otherwise, this would be great. Oh, you mean the point of the story? Cool.
In my defense, I'm like, hey, this is Stephen King.
Yeah, that's true.
He made it dark, not me.
Just blame King.
Has it been shown anywhere besides the Dollar Baby Film Festival?
No, it hasn't. I did a little premiere at my local movie theater when it was just the short before I did like the whole prequel for it. But other than that, no. Where
do those two things separate? You shot the original and then you went back and you did the more of the prequel story. What was the timeline in shooting those?
Before I go into that, I'm blaming Natasha for that.
Because she's not here to defend herself. Go for it.
No, I'm going to go all out. The short was done. We screened it and I was like, oh, that's that. And then a month or so goes by and I'm like, hey, what if I add one more scene into it, like a little backstory? And I was talking to Natasha. I'm like, hey, how would you feel about possibly coming back? She's like, oh, that'd be a great idea. And I'm like, all right, well, I have this one scene. It'll be like 1 minute. And she goes, oh, great. And then I don't hear from her for like 4 or 5 days. She comes back. She's like, she gave me like a 30-page paper. She's like, she slams it down. She's like, I got an idea.
That's amazing.
And I'm reading it. I'm like, at first I'm like, we already filmed it. I'm like, what? You want us to just all go back? And then I keep reading it. And I'm like, hey, there's something here. And it was about a month after that. Then we all got back together and shot all the prequel stuff.
It sounds like you two have a really great working relationship and collaboration. Have you done anything else together? Do you have anything in your future that you're going to work on with her?
As the moment, no, we don't have anything, but I would love to work with her again.
So if you could, after everything you've done, how it's all turned out, if you could go back and give anybody a piece of advice if they were doing their own Dollar Baby, what would that piece of advice be?
To just enjoy it. It may seem like it's stressful because you're holding a Stephen King story. So you're like, I have to do the best I can. And of course, everyone wants to do the best they can, but just have fun with it. Like you're making a movie, and if you're there with friends or a random crew, whatever, just have fun with it.
I think that would really stress out a lot of people, but it would be a shame to look back on that moment and not be able to, see the big picture and appreciate it and appreciate what you did if you were just so anxious about adapting something like that.
Exactly. That's how I felt at first when on like day one of filming Cain Rose Up. I'm like, oh boy, like here we go, like Stephen King. This is crazy. But then as the days kept going on, I'm like, this is great. I love this.
Was there anything from tackling this project that you learned that you either wish you knew going into it or just, I don't want to make it sound negative, like, oh, did you learn a lesson? But what did this teach you?
It taught me to be a better editor. Because I pulled a Robert Rodriguez on this. I wrote, shot, directed, edited, and produced like all myself.
Wow.
And that took me a little over a year to edit, and it burnt me out so much.
I bet. That's a lot. That's a huge workload.
And after I was done with it and I showed it, I'm like, I need a break. But I did learn a lot. I learned how to be a better editor, especially writing. Like I learned how to correctly format a script, which I never knew how to do before. Mm-hmm. And even just being a better director and learning more with the camera, it taught me so much.
I imagine going into something like that, you probably, this is how I would probably end up writing it, almost write like everything you want to see happen instead of, a script.
Yeah, just all the
like, here's my 800
big
pages.
ideas first.
So tell us what interests you right now. What's next for AJ Gribble?
Well, my friends and I, we just started a production company called Dark Valley Entertainment.
Nice.
And we have a bunch of plans, but we're hoping to film like a little YouTube series at the end of September. So that's my biggest plan right now.
Can you give us any sneak peek info on what it's about or anything?
Yeah, it's more of like a series based on an old short film that we did called My Frightful Night. And it was like one of our first big shorts. And I look back on it now, I'm like, that could have been so much better. So we're kind of like rebooting it as like a little series to give it more of like better story and give it more of like a horror vibe to it, which I feel like we missed on the first time. And I'm excited.
Where can people keep up to date with that if they want to check it out or see what else you're doing?
They can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, but I don't recommend my Twitter because I just shit post. So my Instagram...
At least you're honest about it. Yeah.
So my Instagram would be more news on my filming projects, and also my YouTube and Instagram for Dark Valley. That will be where all my projects will be.
Awesome. That's it for this episode of Derry Public Radio. As always, thank you for listening. Join us for our next episode. For C.M. Alexander and AJ Gribble, I'm Joshua Kahn reminding you, have fun and do the best you can.
Hey everyone, C.M. Alexander here. Thank you for listening to our interview of AJ Gribble, director of The Dollar Baby, Garrish. We had a fantastic time talking to AJ, and we hope you enjoyed listening. Keep up with his work by checking out his website at linktr.ee/AJGRIBBLE, and we'll have this link in our show notes as well. Here's the haiku we did for the Stephen King Rules Dollar Baby Film Festival for Garrish. Once an outsider, a young girl joins a new group, betrayed, then repaid. That's all for now, listeners. Goodbye.